It seems like every year, technology gets to a level that we would have thought ridiculous as children. You can buy yourself a home that was 3D printed, take a taxi with nobody behind the wheel, and robots are doing backflips now, something previously reserved for frat guys whose six-pack is their whole personality, and high schoolers a little bit too into parkour. Yes, I'm projecting, I wish I could do a backflip. And in the last 2 years, I've gotten pretty into growing my own plants. I've conquered growing basil and making my own pesto. I've conquered having houseplants, kind of. But this whole time, I was using the same thing. Soil from the earth, the substance that may have been holding us back this whole time. We've elevated our technology in so many ways, why not do that with the dirt itself? This is a loamy. This is a device that lets you turn food scraps into usable soil, or at least what the company calls loamy earth. Obviously by food scraps, they mean things like vegetables and fruit, but this device can turn any food scraps into soil. So what would happen if I turned fast food into soil? Could I grow a plant from that? So I'm gonna try to turn fast food into soil, grow arugula, and make myself a salad. Let me be clear. I'm going into this with no research whatsoever. I'm essentially doing a highly produced experiment that I'm planning on posting with no actual assurance that any of this is going to work. It would actually be a miracle if it did. I'm utilizing the most highly processed foods we put in our body to grow a life form. That's like trying to teach a dolphin to drive a car. Nobody's tried it because if they did, they'd be an idiot. But wouldn't it be funny if it worked? The most research I've done has been Googling, can you grow a plant from just loamy earth? And the answer has been frequently and only a resounding no. And that's because I'm operating based on loamy earth being compost, which you can grow plants in. But loamy earth is something different. Loamy earth is the nutrient-rich, soil-like end product created by the Loamy Countertop Food Recycler, designed to be used as a natural fertilizer for plants and gardens rather than traditional compost. Basically, it's not actually compost. I would have loved for this to be real compost coming out of this machine. In fact, that would have made it a lot easier for me. Unfortunately, making compost takes a long time, and also the usage of worms. And I hate worms. They're like the losers of the ground, meant to be consumed by children and fish. But that restriction won't stop me from trying to brute force a miracle. Whoa. Look at this thing. The plan is to put all the fast food into this thing. It's going to grind it up and then hopefully turn that into soil that we can use to grow a plant. One of the first things I see is a QR code answering the question, what can I put in my loamy? I don't know if we're gonna follow that, but let's ask. It specifically says to have a smaller mix of processed foods. Batch number 1 would be McDonald's. 2 large fries, 2 double cheeseburgers, 20 chicken nuggets, and just to be safe, apple slices. Just to give it a fighting chance. Although I was looking at the ingredients of these apple slices from McDonald's, they also have an ingredient on them that's meant to maintain freshness and color. These are just apple slices, and they still had to add something into that. I need to fit all of this stuff right here into this. Oh, jeez. Oh, God. So it's got pickles. There's a little bit of plant life going on here, but there's a lot of meat and there's a lot of cheese. As I was doing this, I started to seriously doubt how this could even come close to dirt. Well, okay, they're in there. For this experiment, I'm gonna be using Loamy's grow mode. This is their longest mode, taking somewhere from 16 to 20 hours. It, quote, runs at a lower temperature to preserve microbes and boost soil health. And I guess the express mode is if you need dirt like right now. Today. I'm also going to be utilizing Loamy Pods. These are little tablets you put in that are allegedly packed with powerful microorganisms, and I'm for sure going to be putting those microorganisms to work, and I'm not paying overtime. Microbacteria in there now. I guess with all that being said, let's turn this McDonald's into dirt. Okay. Oh, it's spinning. Oh, it's beginning the process. So I guess we gotta wait 16 to 20 hours before this turns to dirt. I don't know what I expected to happen here. When I got back from being out this last weekend, I got home and I've left the Loamy going, and my entire apartment smells like McDonald's. Oh my God. I had to open up the windows in my apartment just to filter out the air that I was smelling. And I gotta say, the resulting dirt is a little bit creepy. What the fuck is that? It smells like Cheetos. I made Cheeto dirt. It's dry, but there's like kind of a greasiness to it that isn't preferable, to say the least. I think a plant would taste that and be like, guess I'm just not gonna live. This is nasty. This is essentially grease slop that I have here. What's to do now that we have all of this dirt? Well, I've got a special little friend, the dirty bucket. The dirty bucket. This thing's gonna live outside. Unfortunately, this batch of dirt was not nearly enough for me to do this whole experiment. This couldn't even fill one pot. So I placed the dirty bucket as far away from me as I could get it and cleaned the Loamy in preparation for batch number 2 Taco Bell, 1 cheesy gordita crunch, 1 veggie bowl, 1 chalupa supreme, and 3 crunch wrap supremes.
I think that Taco Bell has a little bit more vegetables within it than something like McDonald's. Half of these things have some form of like lettuce or tomato in them, so there's some plant matter going on here. I feel like this one might turn out a little bit better than McDonald's did. At the end of the day though, I'm putting most of my hope in this veggie bowl here. This one's gonna take us to the finish line. And I think the thing that's gonna screw us from making usable compost is probably gonna be the crunch wrap supremes. I don't know if nature really called for that.
Nevertheless, I stuffed all the Taco Bell I could into Lomi and started my next cycle.
There it goes. It's beginning its magic to do horrific, unholy, godless things to this fast food. Taco Bell's done. This thing's got a little bit more dirt than I think the first round. I may have added some eggshells that I had left over from some eggs that went bad. I didn't want to put them down the garbage disposal. So if you're wondering what the white stuff in this is, it's eggshell. So it's a bit browner than the other one. It doesn't smell like Cheetos, it just smells like ground beef. It's also closer in color to what regular potting soil is, but it is still clearly not.
But after all of this, I still did not have enough dirt. So I prepared for my third and final submission to the maw of the Lomi, batch number 3, KFC. And I may have over-ordered chicken tenders, fries, mashed potatoes, sweet corn, coleslaw, and a chicken pot pie.
If you told me a year ago that I would be taking a chicken pot pie and turning it into dirt, I'd probably send you to jail. I think that this corn might be the thing that saves this whole video. We might be getting saved by the kernel. Now the chicken, this might cause some problems for us. The chicken pot pie, there's not a lot, but there are carrots and there are peas in a chicken pot pie. There are vegetables in it. I saw that they had applesauce that was available in the kids meal on the KFC menu, so I ordered that as well, thinking like, might be good to have some classic applesauce in there. Didn't know I was gonna get tricked. They gave me a Capri Sun. I don't know if I'm living in crazy town, but this is very different than an applesauce.
Either way, the Lomi hungered for more grease, so I once again fed it willingly. Also, the coleslaw was far too wet.
Oh, that's barely even mayo at that point. That's just milk. Oh, I'm excited. I think this is gonna be a delicious dirt. Time to see how the KFC dirt does. The Lomi had the hardest time with the KFC. It took like maybe 48 hours. I don't know if that's because the Lomi's starting to struggle a little bit. Maybe the Lomi's starting to get a little bit depressed because it's currently operating in a job it was not designed to do. Looking a lot like the McDonald's. I don't know if that's all the corn that I added. Let's give it a feel test. Yeah, no, it's greasy. The dirty bucket hungers for more dirt. Oh God.
So I mixed all the fast food dirt together to make one final dirt.
Doesn't look that bad. All of this in the dirty bucket, I think I just might have enough to run this experiment.
But while I'm leaving much of this plant growth up to chance, you shouldn't be doing the same for your career. Which leads me to the sponsor of this video, Strawberry.me Career Coaching. It seems like these days the job market is more competitive than ever. And the people who will succeed in a world like this are those who have a solid plan and solid goals, which is where Strawberry.me comes in. Strawberry.me will help you create a strategy for your career. When I met with my coach Vincent, I wasn't really sure what to expect from the experience, but right off the bat, he was asking some pretty thoughtful questions to figure out my specific goals and what I'm struggling with. One of them, for instance, was genuinely addressing how to improve my YouTube video output, which I'm sure might be a relief to those of you who want to see more than 4 videos a year from me. This was nice too because I do have a therapist that I talk to sometimes about my career worries and issues, but meeting with a career coach was very clearly different. It was more oriented to figuring out the root of my issues in direct relation to my work, based on like who I am and how my working brain ticks, and then giving me actionable steps that I could take to address them as opposed to just talking about them. Like I am legitimately going to keep using this service because I can see how helpful it can be to talk to a professional who is directly invested in your own success and someone who will create accountability for you. Like I'm going to check in with my coach next week and we're going to talk about how the week went. This platform can be really helpful to speak to someone who has an outside perspective on one's career. They give you tools to be able to find the right path for you. Plus, it's virtual, accessible, and flexible, meaning you can spend the time to take ownership of your career without your schedule taking ownership of you. So go to strawberry.me/Ted Nivison or scan the QR code on screen. They're offering a $50 credit so you can actually try it out. Don't leave your career to chance. Find the right coach and make it happen with strawberry.me. Thanks for watching the sponsor, and now to the plant store. So I headed off to the plant store to grab supplies for this experiment. I'll explain in a second, but I needed a lot of pots in order for this to work. But I also didn't really remember how much Lomi dirt I had, so I bought like 2 sets of pots in different sizes. I have a lot of clay pots now. Seeing the beauty of the plants around me here made me feel kind of like a spy. Everyone else was here to do right by the souls of these plants, whereas I was here here to do something devious and unholy, so I quickly got what I needed and headed home. This experiment would be conducted at the utmost level of scientific research. In order for us to get tangible results, we needed to have a control and different variables. There might be more to it, but that's all I remember from high school science. Obviously, we'd have our control, which is just growing a plant in regular potting soil. But then we'd start adding our loamy creation at 10%, 50%, 75%, and finally 100%, allowing us to see a range of how the plants will react to different levels of fast food soil.
We sort of got a spectrum going on here, ranging from it would be really surprising if this didn't work to it would be really surprising if this did work. I'm gonna make the soil mixtures now, and then tomorrow will be day number 1 of trying to grow a plant using soil made from fast food. This soil's made a name for itself clearly. We've got Edna's Best Potting Soil. So we're using the greatest here. I've also got a little bit of pumice. This is basically just like little rocks that you put in soil in order to encourage water to drain through the soil properly. Because I think at the higher levels of the loamy soil, that's just the water, it's just gonna suck it up.
So I went ahead and created my first mixture, the 10% loamy.
So that's about 10% loamy soil and 90% potting soil.
I also made sure to mix the loamy dirt with the soil to make sure it was as homogeneous as possible.
Kind of looks like cookies and cream or something. So out of anything involving the loamy dirt, this one probably has the best chance because it's 90% being supported by actual soil. This is one that if something grows in it, I get to say, kinda. I think the worst thing about this is that as I'm putting the dirt into these pots, the loamy dirt has a smell to it that makes me believe that anything involving this stuff is going to just wither and die.
Then I went ahead and created the 50% and 75% loamy mixtures.
And finally, the worst of all, the 100% fast food dirt pot. I wonder what this one smells like. Ah! Ooh, 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 ooh.
I don't know why I kept smelling this. It smelled almost like vomit or something far more ancient and demonic, like Mother Earth herself was crying out to stop this at once.
It's a wonderful gradient going from healthy looking dark soil to mutant. Today is the day! At the end of yesterday, I was feeling a little bit down in the dumps. Wrong! In order to achieve anything in life, you have to be positive. You have to assume that it's going to work. I feel like manifestation is the biggest thing that's gonna help us through this. I'm not saying I'm making water into wine, but it's damn close. Allegedly, these take 10 to 15 days to just emerge in the first place from the soil. We won't know until a little bit more than a week in if we're even rocking with some livable plants here. In an ideal world, we'll get so much plants from these that we'll be able to just make a whole salad. I'll be able to do a taste test from each of these to see if the salads taste different. These beautiful seeds hold all of my hopes and dreams in them. If I was already gonna have trouble getting into heaven right now, those gates are gonna be locked when I'm done with this. This is kind of like the Hunger Games for these seeds. Like the ones that are going into the 100% soil, they're gonna live a normal life. The ones that go in this one, they're going straight to the fucking slums.
So I planted all the arugula seeds into their respective pots.
Good night, my pretties. I believe in you, loamy seeds. You got a lot rooting against you, but I believe in you. Now we gotta take these guys outside and we gotta water them.
I'll be honest, after days on end of me converting fast food into dehydrated pseudo-compost, I was starting to think I'd never get to this point. But when watering those seeds, I felt the infinite potential of nature within the palm of my hand. That is until after watering the mixtures, I noticed the very stark difference in texture between the control and the 100%. It was like touching an evil, stinky mud. But I set my worries aside now, as all that had to be done now was wait. So I set up my time-lapse camera that night, and the grand experiment had begun.
I'm a little bit disappointed with the results that we've got here, ladies and germs. I think I may have been a little bit too hopeful. I may have had too much of a twinkle in my eye.
Week 1 went pretty much as expected. I didn't see any sort of response from any of the dirts because I had just planted the seeds and put them outside. By the time that day 6 rolled around, we started to see some sprouts from the control, which makes sense. That is objectively the best scenario that a plant could grow. Then day 7 and 8 rolled around, and I started to get a little bit nervous because none of the other things had sprouts in them at all. I'm starting to think to myself, oh shit, I've spent so much time already on this video and it's not gonna work at all? That'd be kind of miserable. One of the first things that I noticed about the various levels of the loamy dirt is that as you go up in percentage of the fast food dirt, it gets harder. When the material reacts with water, it gets more solid. I think this is because of all of the grease. With the 100% loamy dirt, looks like the surface of Mars. And I don't even think that the guy in The Martian would have been able to grow potatoes from this. This is worse than Mars dirt. It is Gross. On top of that, when I watered it, none of the water would even really seep into the dirt. It was kind of just sitting on top and turning into kind of like a swamp. So that was cool. That was great. So as I rolled into week 2, I was getting a little bit depressed. I was getting a little bit worried. But then on day 9, I got some actual sprouts from a loamy dirt experiment. And wouldn't you know, it was the one that Loamy themselves recommended, which was the 90-10 split. But this was huge. I now had 2 of the pots growing at this point. The control was a relief because at least that meant that I could grow a plant from seed in the first place. And the 10% was a good start. We now knew that with a small presence of fast food soil, a plant could still sprout from it. I'd taken a knife and dug into the 50-50 mix to see if there was any reactions there, and I did actually find a seed that had sprouted a little bit. But the problem is the dirt in that mixture is so hardened that I don't think that a little tiny baby plant can burst through the soil there to get to the light. They're trapped in the claws of a greasy mess of McDonald's dirt. That's freaky. I feel bad for them, but I also salute their sacrifice. I waited the rest of the week for any of the other pots to sprout, but just nothing was happening. I was like, this is miserable. I don't want to have to be like, oh, Loamy was right, 90-10 split's the only thing that works. I don't want to tell a company that they're right. Nobody wants to do that. At the very least, we've got actual plants that are growing a little bit from the nutrients that are in all of that fast food, which is kind of cool. Week 3 rolls around. The 50-50 and the 75-25 started doing some weird stuff. Namely, they both started to mold. The 50-50 was probably the worst of them. It had this sort of blanket of mold all over it. I'm assuming that's because I'm taking dehydrated fast food, putting it in a mixture of dirt and covering it in water. It could also be a curse from an ancient god. I'm not really crossing that out as a possibility here. But mold showed up, and then came the flies. Even now, as I checked upstairs on the plant, there is actively like full-on flies on this loamy mixed dirt. They also smell nasty. Any seed that's getting planted in that is just getting poison damage and dying. I've possibly created a more inhospitable environment than like when a plant bursts out of concrete. Then another weird thing started happening. The 90-10 mix started growing better than the control. I was starting to see actual baby arugula leaves forming in the 90-10 mix, whereas the control reached this weird baby purple sprout stage, and it wasn't growing any further beyond that, which confounded me and still does. Like, why are you having a problem? Is it just because you live in a weird neighborhood? So we're having 10% of success right now. Personally though, that's not enough for me. 10% of a win is not even close to a passing grade. We're on academic probation, to say the least. Things aren't going well. So I need to change a game plan here. I'm a greedy bull. I want results. I need pictures of Spider-Man. At this point, we can say with almost absolute certainty that nothing from 50% loamy and up is going to grow a plant. It's just not gonna happen. But we've also learned that in 10%, something can grow. But think about this little number. There is a 40% split in loamy percentage in there that I have not tested. Now the experiment becomes, how much fast food dirt can I add to a mixture and still be able to grow arugula? Lucky for me, I had 6 extra pots and I had some loamy dirt to spare, so we were gonna figure out exactly what percentage our ceiling was.
Dirty Buckets here. Been sitting outside for about a month now. I checked what things looked like today with the control and the 90-10%, and the control is still not going past like the little weird purple sprouts. I don't know what's happening with the control. If there are plant people out there that can tell me why the control is doing worse, that'd be perfect. If I was the entire scientific community, the scientific community is baffled.
This time around for making my mixtures, I tried going for a different strategy.
Last time I mixed it in the pot.
So this time I mixed it in the clear measuring cup, making sure that the loamy dirt was completely homogeneous with the potting soil.
For almost a 50-50 mixture, that looks pretty good. So with all of the seeds planted, now it's time to bring these puppies outside, water them, and just hope for the best that I win this. It's been a month and a half I've been working on this video.
Things are going all right. In that first week, we got nothing going on. But I'm watering them. I'm being a little bit belligerent about it too. I've got the fear of God in my heart, and I've got the joy of plant growing in my soul. Luckily for me, at about day 7, I was given a gift.
In the 20%, I've got a little bit of sprouts going.
I have to stoke that little ember and try to make sure that it'll grow. I have no idea how that plant was able to burst out of that rock hard soil.
That's right, baby. The 20% came through, which means that I've officially doubled the amount that Loamy said was possible. Fuck you, Loamy. I'm feeling good. Fingers are still up. They're raised high to the sky, to the heavens. I'm going to kill God. 20% has sprouted. It's growing actively right now upstairs, and it's going to blossom into a beautiful salad. That is 1/5 of the soil that this plant is growing from is made up of 100% fast food soil. That's a lot of numbers thrown out there, but it feels good. What I'm a little bit curious about is why the 15% didn't grow. Because the 15% is like demonic. This is the worst mold infestation I've seen in any of the pots that I've planted. It is the corpse of all of these experiments I've done. So where we're at right now is, okay, I've got the 20% growing. All I need to do really is just keep it alive. And I'm really excited to see how big the 20% grows in comparison with the 10%. 10%'s doing really well at this point. I'm hoping that the new plant can get to maturity fast enough so I can try both of the salads side by side. So that's the current status in week 6. This is kind of a victory, right? Please. Unfortunately for me, I set my sights too high again. The 20% grew for a bit, but at a certain point it just stopped. This tiny little set of sprouts that managed to break through the soil were not, I think, able to get roots down below. For a couple more weeks, I watched this sprout grow into nothing but a disappointment for me. And at the same time, the only successful part of my experiment, the 10%, got further and further into maturity. So I had to make a judgment call. Here's the deal. I don't think that I'm going to get this 20% to grow any bigger than it has. I'm probably 2 weeks late to accepting this fact. 20% ain't gonna grow any bigger than a little tiny bit it is at now. Which means that if I'm going to make my salad, I need to use the 10%. This has been a long journey over several months. One thing is known for sure. I kind of grew it in the 20%, and I definitely grew it in the 10%. So now all there is to do is harvest that arugula, buy some control arugula from the grocery store, and we'll see how good my kind of fast food grown salad is.
We're finally here. We finally have our harvest of the only arugula that I was able to grow, which is the 10%. The one that Lomi said was the one that I'd be able to grow, which pisses me off to a very large degree. This has been a long journey to get to this point. I waited way too long to harvest this arugula. I waited so long. The comparison that I'm going to be making here is inherently ridiculous. I'm currently going to compare tender young baby arugula leaves to the experiment, which is 90% off from my original goal in terms of the soil content. Some of the leaves are yellowing because this is a frail old arugula leaf grown in 10% fast food compost. Maybe I should have believed the research I was doing into this. But no, I will waste 3 months of my life on growing this plant. I don't even know if I can eat some of these leaves. They look spooky. Some of these leaves look remarkably like something I'd find in a witch's garden. Nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, we will be comparing them. Will there be a difference? I wonder. This is a private selection small batch lemon and olive oil vinaigrette, which sounds really good.
First, I made sure to wash the leaves thoroughly. And since I had a bad experience finding a weird worm on a basil leaf 2 years ago, I checked every single leaf individually.
All roads lead to victory in some way. I don't know who said that. Probably because I just made it up. It's important at the end of the day to have perspective. Right here is a little bed of seeds.
They never got a chance to have the chance that this salad right here was able to have.
Think about that for a second. Model that in your brain. We're all lucky to be alive. And maybe that's a lesson of this video. We're all lucky to be alive.
Let's finish off this science project. That's a pretty good comparison right there in terms of what we're dealing with. These are our 2 salads. We've got our control and we've got our experiment. First to do, try a piece of arugula. Arugula-y.
Oh, a little bit of sweetness in it too.
That's pretty good. And now it's time to try my 10% fast food grown version. Oh. I don't know if this is because this isn't baby arugula, but the aftertaste is a little bit aggressive in some ways. There's a darkness in that. If I start glowing green, call the cops.
But at the end of the day, our goal here was to make a salad.
We're gonna do the serving size, which is 2 tablespoons in each of the salads. Toss the salad a little bit.
First, let's taste our control salad.
Oh.
That's awesome, actually.
I feel like I'll definitely have lemon olive oil vinaigrette in the future. That's fucking phenomenal. I set out more than 3 months ago to grow a plant from fast food to create a salad. And after all this time, we finally can determine if that salad is good. Here we go.
It's not that good.